It's today. She's an absolute beaut, isn't she? Can't believe I actually 3D printed this. It's insane. What's going on, you guys? Welcome to another awesome Solidworks video where I'll be showing you how you can use Solidworks and 3D printing to create something awesome like this. Crazy, right? Let me show you how I did it. It's real simple. It's a toy. This is force perspective. I'm going to show you how you can use Solidworks to create awesome models like this and make them look real big. Let's get to it. Force perspective is a technique used in film and photography which allows you to take something that's really big, make it seem small, or take something really small and make it seem huge. These techniques are used mostly in photography, but they are also used in film. But we're going to focus mostly in the use in film, purely because it's a lot harder to do on film. So the technique I used to do the spaceship, it's not a very common technique used anymore, purely because it's so much easier and cheaper to use CGI. But back in the day, that's the kind of thing they would have used to create that kind of image. They would use a smaller model of the vehicle and put someone behind it and make it seem like it's much bigger. Very good way to fool the eye. The other form of force perspective I did, where I took something small and made it look really big or the same size, that's used a lot more common in films in these days. Most popular use of it was in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, to make Frodo Baggins look smaller next to the larger characters such as Gandalf. I got the inspiration of this by doing a force perspective example at the Warner Brothers studios in Hollywood. Here's a picture of me and my wife sitting at a table that's set up like in Lord of the Rings and shows how the actual technique was used. And I thought, can I do this in Solidworks? And can I use Solidworks to test it, bring it into the real world so that it works? So let's get into making these models and testing them out in Solidworks with a camera to see if force perspective works in Solidworks. So in Solidworks I was just going to make pretty much the two basic blocks. I'll start off with the smaller one. We'll make it 50. I'll extrude it from the mid plane to make it 50, so 25 on either side. So I'm going to create the larger block, 4 times bigger than the smaller block, and 4 times the distance away from the main block. Just wanted to fix it to make sure it's in line. I extruded this one from the mid plane as well. To save material and to give a better illusion, I decided to cut out the cores of this just to make it look better. Make sure we cut both bodies. And that was done. That was the body made. I switched to perspective and you can see just putting it in perspective the illusion doesn't work. I put it just a little bit further away because I wanted to get a better effect. I went to my cameras and I added a camera. So the right view is obviously the camera view that I'm going to see, and then the left view is the three environments where I can edit the camera and move it around. So this takes quite a bit of fiddling. You know, try your best to get them the same size, and then it's just fiddling with the camera, getting it to line up. I kept exiting into a full screen just so I can get a better view of the alignment. I was quite happy with that alignment. Changed the background, added some lights for Photo View 360. I was just going to do a real basic rendering here just to make sure there's no shadows casting on them. Added some color to make it pretty. And got a preview window, and there you can see it looks like it's one piece, which is exactly the illusion that I'm after here. So the camera works great. This is something that I wanted to see if you can do in Solidworks, so I can now use this to test any forced perspective projects I wish to endeavor further. A lot of big words. With the smaller one, I added a clear perspex rod on just so that I can take a still image like this, use a bit of Photoshop magic and make it disappear. This is a similar technique they would have used in films such as the old Star Wars and that, to hide away the rigs that hold the spaceships together. And that got me thinking, let me create a spaceship. So I went back into an old project I did, creating an X-Wing. So I just printed these models. If you want to see how I actually made this model, please follow the link down in the description to the video where I actually made this. It's quite cool. But anyway, I printed this out again, drilled a massive hole at the back to put a clear rod in it so that I can, spaceship. I then dolled it up a bit with some paint, but I didn't do the other side purely because you're not going to see the side. I then positioned it in front of the camera and then positioned myself further away to make it seem like the spaceship was bigger than me. So how this works technically is you use your scale numbers. This is scale 1 to 1 and this is scale 1 to 4. So what that means is that I would put this 1 meter away from the camera, and then I'll put this 4 meters away from this object, creating that 1 to 4 perspective, and that allows you to make it look like they're the same size. The thinking behind this is that you can go ahead and design, a lot of large set pieces in Solidworks with a lot of smaller items that might be a lot more expensive to make. Test in Solidworks if the illusion can be pulled off, and if it can, you can move on into manufacture of the parts. Like I said, forced perspective isn't a very common use in film these days, but it's still really fun when practical effects are used in film. But forced perspective is used a lot in photography, and the most common place you'll ever see these is at tourist hotspots, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, pizza, the Eiffel Tower, or the cliched holding the sun as it sets. A lot of these techniques are used a lot, and a lot of people don't realize that this is a technique used for many, many years in the old days of film. I really hope this inspires you, just like the photo I did in Los Angeles inspired me to experiment more with a bit of forced perspective and see if I can actually do it. And it is a lot of fun to pull off. Hope you guys enjoyed this, hope you learned a lot from it. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. We'll see you guys in the next one.